Welcome, benevolent viewers, to Our Noble Lineage. Today we will discover the history of secular and religious vegetarian societies in the West, particularly in Victorian England. During the mid to late 19th century, England experienced a great increase of interest in vegetarianism. Prior to 1847, people who refused to eat flesh were referred to as Pythagoreans, in reference to the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Pythagoras believed that souls transmigrated into either human or animal forms, and therefore advocated abstaining from meat. The vegetable diet was the name most often used for a meat-free diet. Although there are some diverging opinions about the exact year the term was coined, many believe that the word vegetarian was first used in 1847 at the forming of the Vegetarian Society in England. As vegetarianism became more popular, new societies were created that made their own terms for the animal-free diet. These terms included vegetist, fruitarian, and aristophagy, which means anti-meat eating. On today's show, we are honoured to have John Gilheany, author of Familiar Strangers, the Church, and the Vegetarian Movement in Britain between 1809 to 2009. Share his thoughts on Christian vegetarian societies. His familiarity with the topic began in the early 1990s when Mr. Gilheany participated in Christian vegetarian campaigns by sharing books on the topic penned by vegetarian clergy. The booklet Christian Vegetarianism, A Biblical Approach to Life, was also produced by Mr. Gilheany and was published by the Fellowship of Life based on animal theology. He has been involved with Veg for Lent as well as the Christian Vegetarian Association UK.
In the 1890s was when they were really just starting out, and the vegetarian movement was on a bit of an upwards cycle. Vegetarian restaurants were on the increase in London in particular because you had a tendency for a lot of office clerks to use them. Although they were meat eaters themselves, they knew it was an affordable lunch. I mean, on the plus side, in 1898, the Insurance, Banking and Financial Review featured an essay or an article from Sidney Beard, the Order of the Golden Age president, which sought a reduction in insurance premiums or life insurance premiums for vegetarians on health grounds. So in contrast to the meat-eating culture of Britain at the time and range of health issues that were associated with excessive meat consumption. The article was endorsed by the editor in a subsequent edition. It occurred in the 1890s, but it's pertinent in the sense that a few decades earlier, the president of the Vegetarian Society, William Harvey, a mayor of Salford, a Bible Christian, was refused life insurance on the grounds that it was generally perceived to be impossible to exist on a vegetarian diet. So within 30 years, they'd come a long way.
In 1895, the Order of the Golden Age was founded. Its aim was to spread vegetarianism in order to pave the way for the coming of the Golden Age, when all beings would live together in peace and harmony.
With regards to the Order of the Golden Age, what were the factors which led to the founding of the Order of the Golden Age?
Well, the Vegetarian Society was the main campaigning organisation of the late 19th century, but their emphasis was really upon nutritional and ethical, philosophical and general aspects of vegetarianism, much as it is today really. What a lot of Christian campaigners sensed there was a need for was an ad hoc religious food reform association, which is how the Order of the Golden Age came about really. It was formed by Christian vegetarian campaigners largely.
The Order of the Golden Age perceived that Christ's mercy should be extended to all beings. This Christian association laid out its most basic principles as:
the obligation which rests upon all Christians is to make some practical endeavour to hasten the advent of that promised era, when love, mercy and goodwill towards all creatures shall reign in every human heart. To protest against and abandon all social customs and ideas which hinder the coming of that golden age and which violate the spirit of Christ's teaching, but especially such as involve unnecessary bloodshed, the infliction of cruelty upon animals, and the oppression of the weak and defenceless, and that the weak and defenceless have equal rights with the strong.
Our noble lineage will be right back after these brief messages, with more about the newly uncovered Christian Vegetarian Society of the 1800s, the Order of the Golden Age.
The Golden Age element is really harking back to Greek ideas rather than Christian ones. The theme was there between the Greek Golden Age and the biblical prophecy of a peaceable kingdom to come. So it tied in. Yeah. I've been involved in vegetarian activity for the last decade or so, with a Christian angle, and to see most of, if not all of the case presented and the theology so well articulated in those days, it's refreshing to look at it again, and now that it's online in digitized formats, so many volumes, it's something which is sure to inspire a lot of contemporary advocates of vegetarianism.
Today's Our Noble Lineage features the Christian vegetarian group, the Order of the Golden Age, with an interview with Mr. John Gilheany, author of Familiar Strangers, the Church and the Vegetarian Movement in Britain between 1809 to 2009.
Who actually were the Order of the Golden Age, and what was their main purpose or their mission?
They declared themselves an animal rights organisation, and the chief goal was to introduce vegetarianism to the Christian churches.
The Order's motto was, "Thy will be done." In service to Christ, they've published many pamphlets and newsletters, as well as a journal entitled The Herald of the Golden Age. Founder and president of the Order was Sidney Beard, who also served as the editor of The Herald of the Golden Age.
It was probably Sidney Beard's background in the stock markets and his auspicious early retirement from it, which led to them being able to finance quite a lavish, modern, appealing looking publication by the standards of vegetarian journals of the late 19th century, for example, which tended to be internal affairs, real membership bulletins, really.
The Order's publication contained essays on the role of vegetarianism in morality and spirituality, the health benefits of vegetarianism, and advice on diet and cooking. There were writings that showed clearly, through the use of scripture, that Christ, St. Peter and the apostles refrained from eating flesh, seeing it as impure and cruel. Mr. Beard had written in the Herald of the Golden Age the following:
As it is affirmed in the Talmud that Jesus sojourned for many years in Egypt, where he would doubtless have associated with such kindred souls as the Therapeutae, and as his teaching is in closest harmony with that of the Essenes, amongst whom he had so many friends, and as the whole spirit of his life and message is utterly discordant with wanton butchery, or the defilement of the human temple by food which is only appropriate for beasts of prey, those who study this matter without prejudice and who possess more than an elementary measure of spiritual insight will find it impossible to tolerate the idea that the firstborn amongst the sons of God descended at any time to that level of human degeneracy which is characterized by sanguinary carnivorism.
The journal also contained ads for vegetarian products including imitation fur coats and scarves, vegetarian foods such as nut meats and vegetables, and vegetarian soaps and oils.
The Herald of the Golden Age was quite a vibrant newsstand journal. It tended to use some of the more contemporary illustrators of the period. It's quite a charming tendency to introduce little lines of positive thought along the top of each page. In themselves, they're remarkable to look at. Every page is a motivational little excerpt at the top, the type of thing you'd come across in pop psychology books of more recent decades. The main appeal really was the way that the writings themselves, even a century later, exude such spiritual resonance and such incredible inspiration throughout.
Two examples of these constructive quotes that Mr. Gilheany gave were, "We shall never regret having striven to attain high aims," and "We are in this world to act, not to sleep or to dream." To conclude today's show, we present an excerpt of Mr. Beard's articulation of core Christian values, which can be seen in the article titled, "Is It Only a Dream?" written in 1896.
Despite the promises and prophecies of a period when love and goodwill towards all fellow creatures shall reign in every heart, and the belief of the Christian Church that such a time must eventually come, we are too apt to deem it but a poetical fancy, relating to an era which is too far distant in the future to be worthy of our consideration. Very little combined effort has consequently been made to bring about a definite fulfillment of this prayer, and thus to hasten the coming of that golden age described by Isaiah when he said, "The voice of weeping and crying shall be heard no more. Man shall live out his full length of days. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and they shall no longer hurt or destroy." The prophet of Nazareth, however, was no dreamer, and when he exhorted his followers to make the doing of the divine will the aspiration of their lives, he literally pointed out to them the surest and most practical way of remedying the sorrows and miseries of the world, and of securing at the same time their own highest welfare and happiness.
It was a pleasure to have you with us for Our Noble Lineage today. We invite you back next Sunday for the second part of Merciful Christian Heritage, Order of the Golden Age and Early Vegetarian Movements. And now, Between Master and Disciples is up next here on Supreme Master Television. May you have a most joyous day in the grace of heaven. Visit familiarstrangers.co.uk for info on author John Gilheany and the upcoming release of his book Familiar Strangers, the Church and the Vegetarian Movement in Britain from 1809 to 2009. To learn more about the Order of the Golden Age, please visit www.ordergoldenage.co.uk.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/NL.